At 2020 Optometric, your vision is their focus. Whether you're 5 or 65, Dr. Thomas Casagrande will get to know you, your lifestyle, and vision needs to ensure that your contacts or eyeglasses are a perfect fit and the right prescription every time. With the Valley's largest selection of eyewear, 2020 has over 2,000 frames, including top designer brands like Coach, Tiffany, Prada, Ray-Ban, Oakley, and more. Eye exams start as low as $89, so call or stop by to schedule your appointment today.
When you're looking for KitchenAid innovation and quality, who has the answers, the selection, the price? Ventura TV Appliance. With billions in nationwide appliance buying power, more than Home Depot and Best Buy combined, will help you save. Our low prices on Energy Star qualified KitchenAid appliances save you energy and money and pay no interest on select models when paid in full within 12 months. Ventura TV Appliance, serving you since 1951.
Hi, I'm John Malos. Welcome to this live edition of Connect with Me on the showroom floor at Ventura TV on this Thursday morning. Today it's Ask an Expert. We have an expert in the house. He is an attorney who specializes in rental property. Landlords, tenants, the whole 9 yards. 436-ME-TV option 11. It should be a very interesting conversation. Back in a moment.
Tonight I want to discuss the importance of the television medium to the American people.
All right, back here on the program on Connect with Me on MeTV Fresno. We have an expert in the house. He is an attorney, and he will answer any and all of your questions, of course, about either being a landlord or a tenant. And there are many problems, especially if you're a landlord. We'll talk a little bit about that. Congratulations to the New York Mets going to the World Series for the first time since 2000. That's 15 years. Of course, the Miracle Mets of 1969 won the World Series. And then, of course, you gotta believe, remember 1986 when they won the World Series as well. So they are going back with all those young pitchers that they have on the mound. And boy, oh boy, oh boy, they got two great hitters, including David Wright. And I got to tell you something, the Mets are going to be a tough team to beat no matter who they face in the World Series, whether it be Kansas City or the Toronto Blue Jays. So, congratulations to them. We will mention tomorrow's program, Peter Nazaridian is going to be in the house. He is a family therapist. He'll talk about relationships. Relationship you have with your wife, your husband, your boyfriend, your girlfriend, or otherwise. And so we'll talk about that tomorrow. In the meantime, you're watching us on Comcast Channel 375. As usual, it's Xfinity, Monday through Friday, 10 o'clock to 11 o'clock in the morning. If you have over-the-air broadcast, it's 43.6 or 13.1. And so if you want to watch the replay, hey, you are more than welcome to watch the replay at 2 o'clock this afternoon. Over-the-air broadcast 13.6, YouTube. 8 o'clock tonight, 4.6 Biz TV during prime time. No baseball tonight, although the 49ers are on. They play Seattle, so you can watch our replay at 8 while you're watching the Niners versus the Seahawks. Anyway, the Twitter account has not changed. It is at John Malos Me TV. Time to check in now during our monologue segment with Austin Reed, our guy on the Justice Network, talking about the weather and some other news updates. And I'll tell you what, it's starting to cool off, starting to feel more and more like fall. I would imagine, just like it does every year here in the city of Fresno, it's going to go straight from summer-like conditions to winter. There isn't too much of a fall season here in the Central Valley. Here's our guy, Austin Reed, with the forecast.
All righty, John, thank you so much. Austin Reed here in the First Alert No Way Weather Center. We are getting that much closer to the weekend, and it is going to be another beautiful day, and it's going to feel more like fall. Here's your forecast for this Thursday, the 22nd of October. It's going to be sunny. It's going to be clear. Really just a beautiful day. 83 for a high in Fresno. Humidity right around 35%, a little bit lower today than yesterday. You know, a week and a half ago, we were in the 90s, so we will take this kind kind of weather. Tonight, in your No Wait Weather forecast, we're going to talk a little bit about a warm-up in the 5-day outlook. Plus, I'll have some cool viewer photos of the day. That's your No Wait Weather here on Connect with Me from the First Alert No Wait Weather Center on this Thursday morning. I'm Austin Reed. John, I'll send it back to you. Have a great day, everyone.
All right. Thank you very much, Austin. I think I'm catching a little bit of the allergy fever here in the Central Valley, coughing away here, but certainly allergies are starting to kick in, and maybe you think about getting your flu shot as well. Austin Reed, you can catch him on the Justice Network every Monday through Friday starting at 5 o'clock. He'll give you the weather updates. He'll also talk about other news events, and he'll have some local interviews as well, like with Sheriff Margaret Mims and other members of law enforcement. Of course, the Justice Network, just part of the Ventura Broadcasting family here with host John Walsh. Remember him from America's Most Wanted. Today is Ask an Expert Day, and what a day it's going to be here on the program Connect with Me. We have an attorney in the house. He is here to answer any and all of your questions. We will get into some other topics other than the main one today because he deals in other topics as well. However, for now, I want to address those people in our audience because you have called in before. Some of those people that might be a landlord and you have rental property out there and you are renting your, say, your house or maybe an apartment building or whatever you might have to tenants. I want to put up the first picture and show you exactly what I'm talking about, my friends. Keep that photo up there just for a moment because I want to talk about this. What can be most painful and costly for a landlord is having a tenant move out. Then you walk in and find the place like this, completely trashed. The tenant is nowhere to be found, no phone number, no forwarding address, just disappeared out of thin air. How do you track them down? And even if you do, what can you do to make them pay for the damages? We'll go to photo number 2 here. In some of these places, it looks as if a tornado came ripping through, not only with the mess they leave and the destruction of property, but with actual appliances and fixtures that are actually taken out of the home. So how do you select a tenant? What about the eviction process? What about security deposits? If you own rental property and you're having trouble, today is your day. Call in, get some free advice. And if you're a tenant, if you are actually renting an apartment, renting a home, and you've got questions about your landlord, is he a slum landlord? Well, call in, ask the question. It's free of charge. Live in our studio right now is John Cadwalader. He is a Fresno attorney who specializes in landlord-tenant issues, real estate, general business, whatever is on your mind. John Cadwalader is here to answer your question. Feel free to call in. It's free of charge, as I said. 436-ME-TV, option 11. Hey, a good day to call in because for a while now we haven't had an Ask the Expert segment. We got one today. Call in. Here's our expert, my friend. I'm just your friendly host with a smile on my face. 436-ME-TV, option 11. The expert is there waiting for your call. Back in a moment.
Hello, I'm John Walsh. The Justice Network is seen here in Fresno and made possible by the Ventura Broadcasting Company. To see how law enforcement all across Central California are fighting crime, watch Local Choice with Austin Reed, where you'll see interviews and special reports with those who keep us safe every day. Local Choice with Austin Reed, daily on the Justice Network, Fresno, exclusively on KVBC Channel 13.5.
When you like Ventura TV Appliance on Facebook, it's nice. But when you love the Frigidaire Gallery appliances we deliver, it's even better. Our website is cool, and it's a good place to start. But you really should touch the merchandise before you buy.
Time for that upgrade to an Energy Star qualified French door Frigidaire Gallery refrigerator. Quality appliances for the way you live.
Get the best selection, price, and service in town without waiting.
Come in to Ventura TV Appliance and touch the merchandise.
Have you or a loved one recently been arrested for a serious crime?
Is your professional reputation at risk?
Aggressive representation from a qualified defense attorney can help you avoid conviction and keep your reputation untarnished.
Hi, I'm Charles McGill, and I'll fight for your rights. With extensive experience in successfully defending against a wide range of criminal offenses and high-profile cases, you can rest assured that you'll get the fair trial you deserve from McGill, Guzman McGill. Call us at 559-255-3425 or visit us online at toplawyersfresno.com.
Hey, the only question I have for you today, my friends, is why wouldn't you want to call in? I mean, if you're a renter and you're renting, call in. Ask our guest a question. If you're a landlord, which many of you might be, call in. You know, I know somebody here in town, actually I know two people here in town who had their rental home completely trashed. The renter moved out, nowhere to be found, no trace of that person, neither a phone number or a forwarding address. Where are these people? How do you get them? And even if you find them, what do you do? John Cadwalader is here. Welcome to the program, my friend. How are you?
Doing great, John. Thank you for having me.
Hey, no problem, no problem. 436-MeTV, option 11 if you want to call in. So the question is, let me just get right to the crux of the matter. If you're a landlord and you have somebody take off, and we saw some of the photos and we have many more, how do you track this person down? And even if you find them in the dead of night, how do you get them to pay for the damages?
Well, you know, that's a great question, John. It can be difficult to track down tenants after they've destroyed your home and left. There are private investigators who can assist you in finding the tenant.
We had one here last week, by the way, a private eye.
Excellent. So you already have someone you can call. But the fact of the matter is, of course, you can pursue the tenant in a civil action and get a money judgment for the damage or default in rent that the tenant failed to pay. However, in most cases, the tenant doesn't have the funds to pay, and unless they have a good job or significant assets, it's almost a lost cause.
Really?
It can be unfortunate in a lot of cases.
Oh, wow. So even if you find the tenant, even if you go to court, even if they pass judgment and you win the judgment against the tenant, good luck in getting your money? Is that what you're telling me?
Pretty much, John.
Well, thanks a lot. Good knowing you. Thank you very much.
Absolutely.
That's disappointing.
Sure. But oftentimes, if the tenant has a good job and you, of course, got a good application from the tenant and you know where they're working and you've kept that updated.
Can you garnish wages?
Absolutely, John. I'm glad you asked. In California, you're allowed to garnish about 25% of the tenant's wages that exceed the minimum wage here in California. 25% of the wages. For example, if the tenant made $3,000, makes $3,000 a month, you can get approximately 25% of that amount. The employer would pay that to the sheriff as the levying officer, and the sheriff would then pay that to you as the judgment creditor.
That is really interesting. And so I want to put up a couple of photos. Let's go through some of these, Austin, if you want to. I'll wait for you to get set there. We have a series of them that you actually sent us here at Connect With Me, and these are places that have been completely trashed.
Yes.
By the tenants.
These were very unfortunate situations. I help landlords with evictions for tenants, and oftentimes I'll go to the lockouts with the landlords just to help them through the process with the sheriff and make sure everything goes well without a hitch.
Yeah.
And so, as part of that, I'll go inside and see what the properties look like, and these are those photos.
Yeah, the photos that you sent us, and we're going to call those up in just a few minutes here. Let's talk about a little bit, let's change topics a little bit and talk about the eviction process. What if, you get a tenant to rent your home or an apartment complex, yet it's through a friend. Now, here are some of the photos that we're looking at here that you sent us. What if it's a friend? You don't do a background check. You don't make them sign a contract or papers. Is there anything you can do?
Well, I would recommend not renting your property to a friend. I think there's an old saying or a proverb that, if you lend money to a friend, you should consider it a gift.
Here's a kitchen right here that was totally trashed, by the way.
Yes. And
completely gone.
Some of these photos aren't even the worst that I have.
Mm-hmm.
But, good.
So when you walked into this kitchen right here,
sure.
Keep that photo up there just for a moment. It was in that condition, just like that? So who would
Exactly.
leave a place like this? Who would live in a place like this? How can you live in these types of conditions? Or did they trash the place on purpose, out of spite, and then just took off?
John, most of the time, I think that's how these tenants were living on a day-to-day basis. And what's very
Really?
unfortunate is that oftentimes they would have young children who are living in these conditions. You see a lack of, basic hygiene and cleaning. You see, it looks like there's a mop there on the right side of the screen, but it doesn't
Right.
look like it was used too often.
There has to be so much in terms of bacteria and germs in this place. I would imagine you probably call like the hazmat crew in here to clean this place up, right? I mean, it just needs majorly cleaning.
Most of my clients do have handymen who will do what's called a trash out of the premises.
Yeah, here's another example right here. Looks like a closet or something, right?
And what's important to note is that once the lockout occurs, the landlord is required to store the belongings, the personal property inside for the tenant for 15 days.
And what happens after that?
After that point, if the value of the property, an approximate yard sale figure is less than $700, the landlord can dispose of the personal belongings or keep them for his own use. Or if the value is more than $700, then the landlord's required to actually sell the belongings and at a public sale and attribute the value of the belongings to the tenant's back balance.
Got a call coming in. You don't mind
great.
taking a call, right? All right.
Not at all.
Caller, you're on the air on Connect with Me. Good morning.
Yes, good morning. When my sister and my brother-in-law were moving to Las Vegas, they wanted to rent their home. It was a beautiful home. 3 bedrooms, living room, dining room, everything. But before they rented, they took pictures of every room individually, and they finally got somebody to rent the house. But what they did, they wrote down the description of the car that the vehicles that they had, and the license plates and everything. That way, if anything happened when they moved, they could look for them that way. And fortunately, they got good renters. But the thing is, this is the advice my parents always gave us. When you move into a house that you're renting, just because you're renting, that's not your house, but still it's your home. You have to take care of it. You have to take pride in it. Because the thing is that if you move out of there, you're going to rent somewhere else. That's going to follow you, and nobody's going to want to rent to you, ever.
Absolutely.
Yeah, because when you move into someplace and you want to rent at an apartment complex or a home, they ask for references, do they not?
A good tip for a landlord would be to check prior rental references and talk to the previous landlords and find out what happened. Did they leave the property in good condition? Did they pay the rent on time? And it costs absolutely nothing for the landlord to call the previous landlord to get that information, and that's definitely a best practice to obtain that information in the application process.
Yeah, we'll talk about that. That picture that you put. Are you still there, caller?
Yes, I am.
Okay. Do you rent property, or are you a landlord, or what?
No, I rent an apartment. But before I moved here, I was renting a home, and I was there for 8 years. And before we moved, I made sure that every room was spotless, left it the way the landlord gave it to me. And so when I went looking for an apartment where I'm at right now, they called to talk to him, and he gave good references. As a matter of fact, the managers at the apartment complex told me, said, "Boy, you sure had a good rental record." And I said, "Yes, I know." I said, because I learned from very young that my mom said, take care of it, even though it's not your property.
Yeah.
And that's definitely a best practice. And it, from the tenant's perspective, that's going to help you get into a better property, maybe be able to negotiate more attractive rental rate, get your pet in there with a reduced pet deposit. All these things can help the tenant.
I want to ask
that's what helped me when we moved to this, because we live on Nice. And it's a nice complex, and like I said, it helped us because they didn't ask us for a deposit.
Yeah, caller, let me ask you a question. Have you ever had any problems with your landlord?
No, not at all. Not at all. They are just this complex where I live. It's a real nice area, beautiful apartments, but like I said, no problems. Anytime anything I need something done, they're here the same day.
Right, and have you had any problems with any other tenants there, like your neighbors? Any complaints?
Oh, no. They
Okay.
right now have a new
All right.
neighbor across the way, and it's a
You never
lady,
know.
a single lady, and she's very nice.
Okay, well, you know, I'm glad you're in a safe place and you're
It's
happy
a
with.
gated apartment complex.
Pardon me?
It's a gated apartment complex.
Okay. I'm glad you're happy with your landlord and your neighbors and everything else, but that's not always the case with a lot of people who move into an apartment complex. And I'm so glad you called. I appreciate it. Good to hear your voice.
Thank you.
All
Have
right.
a good day.
Thank you very much. Talking to John Cadwalader here. He is an attorney, specializes in landlord and tenant issues. And if you have a question, there's John right there waiting for your call. 436-ME-TV, option 11. Time to take a break here on Connect with Me. And I want to tell you that today's program is sponsored by Chuck McGill. He's a longtime defense attorney here in the city of Fresno. It's McGill, Guzman, McGill. You can call him if the unfortunate happens. All right, we're going to continue on and for John with your phone calls and much more in just a moment.
Have you or a loved one recently been arrested for a serious crime?
Is your professional reputation at risk?
Aggressive representation from a qualified defense attorney can help you avoid conviction and keep your reputation untarnished.
Hi, I'm Charles McGill, and I'll fight for your rights. With extensive experience in successfully defending against a wide range of criminal offenses and high-profile cases, you can rest assured that you'll get the fair trial you deserve from McGill, Guzman, McGill. Call us at 559-255-3425 or visit us online at toplawyersfresno.com.
Tired of waiting and waiting and waiting just to see how the weather will be tomorrow? First Alert No Wait Weather with Austin Reed has you covered. Get tomorrow's forecast and the 5-day outlook in less than a minute and at a convenient time. Weeknights between 6 and 10 p.m. only on KVHF 4, KVBC 13, KPID 31, and BTV Fresno. First Alert No Wait Weather, brought to you exclusively by the Ventura Broadcasting Company.
Don't let the looks fool you, my friends. This guy is an attorney. He's not in law school or in college, all right? You graduated from McGeorge Law School in Sacramento. That's my hometown. How'd you like McGeorge?
I loved it. Great school, beautiful area. Midtown was a lot of fun there in Sacramento.
Yeah.
Really enjoyed the city.
Some wild parties there, huh?
Well, I didn't have too much time for that, but I had a great time.
How long have you been an attorney dealing with landlord-tenant issues? That's question one. And why did you choose this field? It's very difficult to track and actually get the money out of people that they owe.
Sure. I've been practicing for about a year now in landlord-tenant issues predominantly, also real estate and, as you mentioned, some other business law issues. My family's been investing in real estate for a number of years. And so
here in Fresno?
Yes.
Okay.
And so it seemed like a good avenue. I was already familiar with the landlord, many of the landlord-tenant laws, and I enjoyed working with other landlords in the past and the tenants, and I just thought it would be a great area to practice in.
If somebody is a landlord, and there are a lot of landlords here in the city of Fresno, and there are a lot of slumlords as well, and I want to get into that a little bit too, because that is a major problem here in the city of Fresno. I've read about it in the paper. It is a common practice. There are a lot of people that complain. But if you are a landlord, and there are a lot of landlords that are above board, and they're great, they treat their tenants right, they abide by the law the state of California has laid down. How do you select a tenant if you're a landlord?
Well, there are a number of limitations on the landlord's ability to select a tenant.
You can't do it on race, creed, or color, right?
Absolutely.
Or religion.
Absolutely.
We all know that.
Yes. In the federal fair housing laws do limit those specific classes amongst a few others.
Meaning?
As you mentioned, race, ethnicity, religion, gender, family status, whether you're married or not.
So wait a minute, let me get this straight now. Federal law is different than California state law?
Yes.
In regards to race, creed, color, religion?
No, those
they all
are
the same?
identical.
They're identical.
California law supplements the federal fair housing laws with additional classes. For instance,
okay.
I believe sexual orientation, and California also generally prohibits arbitrary discrimination on any category.
You can't discriminate against a gay couple who is married, for example.
No, you cannot do that.
Cannot do that. That's against the law. I want to get that straight, right?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Now, I'm not trying to throw a curveball here. I'm just trying to clarify. Caller, you're on the air with our guy John Cadwalader. He's the expert. What's your question?
Yes. Good morning, John. My question is about real estate. I live out in the country, and the people next door are not my tenants. They're neighbors.
Oh,
but legally, what they're doing is they're working on their vehicles and making it like a garage, and they got chickens all over and dogs. What can I do, or where can I go for them to stop that garage sale and garage selling and parts and everything under the sun?
So, if I understand you correctly, they're conducting basically a business out of their residence?
Yes, they are, and they are not the owners. They're renters. They don't speak English, and we complain to the owner, and he doesn't do anything about it. So I don't know who to contact for them not to have a garage and selling parts. And they have vehicles on the side of the roads. We live out in the country, and they work on them, and they sell them.
I imagine that would be very stressful for you. Again, my first suggestion would be to contact the owner. It sounds like you've already done that in this case, and the owner's not been receptive to helping you. The next step would be to contact, you said you're in the country, so I'm assuming that you're in an unincorporated area of the county. I would contact the county planning department. The county may have a code enforcement department. I don't do or see a lot of code enforcement issues in the county, so I can't speak with too much authority.
Sheriff's Department help, or?
You know, I don't. If there's an ordinance that they're violating, a county ordinance, it may be a public offense that the sheriff could help with. Otherwise, you may have to contact, for instance, the planning department. It may be a violation of the zoning ordinance in the county, or a violation of a code enforcement issue in the county. So I would suggest contacting the county and reporting the issue. And perhaps they can provide some additional guidance on how to resolve this.
Go ahead and crank her up on there, Marcus.
Yeah, okay. Well, we live out in Kerman, like I said, out in the country, so I wasn't sure if I call City Hall or do I call the Fresno County for them to get rid of all these old junky cars next door and on the roads and stuff. So.
Sure. Kerman, if Kerman is an incorporated city and they have their own city code enforcement, I would certainly suggest contacting them first if you are in that city. Secondly, I would suggest contacting the county.
Okay, thank you so much for your help, and you have a blessed week. Thank you.
Thank you for the call.
Thank you. That was a great call, and I'm glad you were able to help that person out. I want to get back to how you select a tenant, because we already know it's against state and federal law to discriminate against race, creed, color, religion. You cannot discriminate against gays. You can't discriminate really against anybody. But how do you choose the right tenant that isn't going to hose you in the end?
Well, I always recommend starting with a written application. And on that application, you want to make sure you get the tenant's full name, a social security number, a driver's license number, and information about their employment, how long they've been working there, previous residences, and the information for the landlords. And then I would start by contacting previous landlords and getting information from them about what type of tenant they were. I would call the workplace and verify that they are employed there, how long they've been working there, verify the hours and the wages if possible. And you can also farm this out to a tenant screening service who will obtain a credit report and verify all this information on your behalf. It's a pretty reasonable fee, and I highly recommend doing that.
And if the tenant refuses to answer any or all of the questions, or even one of the questions, does that kind of raise a red flag? And would you say, I think I'm going to think twice about this?
Absolutely, John. If a tenant's refusing to say who they used to rent from, there's probably 9 times out of 10 a problem there, and oftentimes a very serious problem. And so you absolutely want to get that information and make sure there aren't any unexplained gaps in the residency history, say for the last 3 to 5 years.
Yeah, because if the landlord doesn't feel comfortable with what the tenant or prospective tenant is telling him, then something is hiding under the rock.
Absolutely.
Is what you're saying?
Yes.
Okay. Caller, you're there. Go ahead. Can you make it short? Because I got to take a break, please. Just ask a question if you would. Thank you.
And I'll talk later if you want to.
Well, no, go ahead. Just ask a quick question if you could.
Okay, quick question to John. John, you talked about preferably not to rent to relatives or friends, whatever. Myself and my wife, the one we rent now, we moved to this area because it was a nice area and everything. So we did. And as a tenant, I treat the home that I rent as my own home. We take care of the yard work. We take care of the spraying, front and back, and we do all the shampooing ourselves. We don't even ask the landlord. Now that's a few from a lot of people that, like you say, they trash the houses, and but very, I maybe got upset with what you said about running to friends and relatives, but I'm an exception because that's what I do. We take care of everything. Anything, we don't need to be calling to the owner and say, hey, we need this done, this, that, and that. We do it, and we take care of it. Take care of the problem, like I say, we're an exception to the rule.
Well, certainly, caller, the last thing I wanted to do was cause anyone to be upset. I understand that oftentimes it can work out very well for both the tenant and the landlord. And you sound like a great person, and congratulations for having a successful relationship with the landlord.
It sounds like our caller here is a very honest person. Responsible person who has a conscience.
Absolutely.
Now, if he's renting from a friend or a relative, it just goes to show what a great character our caller has. Okay, he's got great character. Not everyone has that. Not everyone has those qualities. So you were saying, I think, and I don't want to put words in your mouth, but correct me if I'm wrong, you're saying in general, if you rent to a friend or relative, it may not be such a great idea because it's like lending money to a friend.
Absolutely.
Right?
As a general rule, it probably isn't the best idea if you want to maintain a cordial friendship or family relationship when Thanksgiving comes around. But it absolutely can work out in some circumstances.
Yeah, I have several childhood friends that I've known since kindergarten. Would I loan them money? I don't know.
Exactly.
Probably not, John. We got to take a break. We're talking with John Cadwalader, a Bullard High School grad, also McGeorge Law School up in Sacramento. He deals in landlord-tenant type issues. We'll get into more of that. And congratulations, by the way, to our last caller for being honest and upfront and responsible. Appreciate that call. 436 Meet TV Option 11. Today's program sponsored by Chuck McGill. McGill, Guzman, McGill. Let's hope you never have to use him. But then if you don't, you might go out of business. Back in just a moment with this program.
Have you or a loved one recently been arrested for a serious crime?
Is your professional reputation at risk?
Aggressive representation from a qualified defense attorney can help you avoid conviction and keep your reputation untarnished.
Hi, I'm Charles McGill, and I'll fight for your rights. With extensive experience in successfully defending against a wide range of criminal offenses and high-profile cases, you can rest assured that you'll get the fair trial you deserve from McGill, Guzman, McGill. Call us at 559-255-3425 or visit us online at toplawyersfresno.com.
When you like Ventura TV Appliance on Facebook, it's nice. But when you love the KitchenAid appliances we deliver, it's even better. Our website is cool, and it's a good place to start. But you really should touch the merchandise before you buy.
Save big with KitchenAid. Right now, get up to a $1,000 prepaid MasterCard when you purchase select KitchenAid appliances.
Get the best selection, price, and service in town without waiting.
Come in to Ventura TV Appliance and touch the merchandise today.
Tired of waiting and waiting and waiting just to see how the weather will be tomorrow? First Alert No Wait Weather with Austin Reed has you covered. Get tomorrow's forecast and the 5-day outlook in less than a minute and at a convenient time. Weeknights between 6 and 10 p.m. only on KVHF4, KVBC 13, KPID 31, and VTV Fresno. First Alert No Wait Weather, brought to you exclusively by the Ventura Broadcasting Company.
We need help to find this missing child. Hallie Cummings was 7 when she went missing. She was last seen in Satsuma, Florida in February of 2009. This is what we believe she looks like today at age 11. If you have any information, please call the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children at 1-800-THE-LOST. That's 1-800-843-5678. Please help bring Hallie Cummings home.
Man, I can't believe that we blew 35 minutes right through the show here. Only 25 more left. 436-MeTV option 11. John Cadwalader is here. He's an attorney dealing with landlord issues and tenant issues. Ask an expert, and there's the disclaimer, my friends. We have that. Try to have that once a week. Haven't had it for a while, but John is the expert on landlord-tenant stuff, and you can call in at 436-MeTV option 11. He came in of his own free will, and we are not paying him, he's not paying us, and the beat goes on, my friend, here on Connect With Me. So John, selecting the right tenants is a long process, because is it good to do a background check on some of these people? And the second part of that question is, do you do a background check? It's not hard now, you can do it online. For a fee, you can do it online. You can have a private investigator. The other thing that you can do is get references from other people. But what happens if this prospective tenant comes in and says, look, I just got out of prison, been in for 10 years, I did armed robbery, I need a place to live. What do you do then?
Well, under California laws, we just mentioned, it's illegal to arbitrarily discriminate in the the rental process. And so when
even for someone who came out of prison?
Yes, generally you want to look at what type of offense was it. In this case, I think it was armed robbery.
Well, I just made that up. It could have been
That's
anything.
a very serious offense. It's a violent felony. And if it happened recently, I think the landlord
10 years ago, let's say. Okay.
You'd have to look again at the facts and circumstances. That would likely be something that you could use, to make to decline the application. Sure. But again, the application process, it shouldn't take a long time. Most of my property management clients are able to process an application in 2 to 3 business days.
Yeah.
Again, if the tenant is, has all the paperwork together and, is able to provide the necessary information, it shouldn't take long at all.
So 2 to 3 days. Do you do a background check? Should you do a background check?
Most of my clients will obtain a credit report. And that will obtain, have, of course, credit information, collections, as well as criminal information and civil judgments, which would include evictions.
Oh, yeah.
And that's, of course, something you want to look at. If the tenant's been evicted in the recent past, say 3 to 5 years, probably not the best option, unless there's been a major life change. For instance, they just obtained a great new job, where before their eviction had consisted of, perhaps a layoff. And in these bad economic times, of course, that happens. But you want to look for things in the credit report like the failure to pay PG&E bills. That's a very significant
cable
issue.
TV bill.
Absolutely. Basic utilities.
Yeah.
If the tenant's not able to pay the basic utilities that are necessary to live in today's world, they probably are going to have problems paying the rent as well. And absolutely, if you see collections from a previous property management company or a landlord, you could just be the next line on that credit report.
That's
so you
right.
want to keep an eye out.
I know, and then you got a paper trail in your hands, and you're chasing. You're chasing, like James Rockford used to do. Chase. All right, go ahead, caller. You're on the air on Connect With Me on MeTV Fresno. What's your question?
Okay, 25 years ago, my parents bought a house, the one I'm living in now. The lady that they bought the house from told them that the owner of the house next door, he replaced a fence, and when he did, he built it 3 foot over on their side of the property. Well, the property has sold like 3 times since then, and now I'm living here, and you can tell that it's 3 foot over because you look down the driveway where the curb's at, and the fence is way over. And I was wondering, when I inherit the house, how do I go about getting that 3 foot of property back? Because it's about 75 foot long.
And how long ago was the fence constructed?
Oh, probably 25, 30 years ago.
Okay. Well, in this case, there's probably not much you can do. The first thing you would need to do to determine that the boundary line would be to get a licensed surveyor to come out and actually determine where the exact boundary line would be. Oftentimes in the city, it can be hard to determine exactly where that boundary line is or should be. And in California, there's a concept called adverse possession, where if somebody, for all intents and purposes, occupies your property continuously for a certain amount of time, it's typically 5 years in California, they may very well have obtained title to that property.
Yeah.
And since this happened such a long time ago, there's likely you may have lost that property permanently.
Really?
I think in this case, yes.
Why?
Through there's a concept in the law called adverse possession, where if you occupy a property for a certain number of years continuously, you can obtain title to that property.
Huh.
I think.
Were you aware of that? Were you aware of that law, caller?
Yes, I am.
My
I
best
had a feeling
suggestion
that
for
was
you,
what
caller,
happened.
would be to contact the other owner, offer to construct a new fence, and put the fence generally on the boundary line. I think that might be the best.
I was thinking of letting him build the fence and let him put it right back where it was. That fence, I've been putting Band-Aids on it for years now, and it's ready to come down. I was thinking if he built the fence, I'd let him keep it, but he can keep it anyway, sounds like. But what about paying taxes? I'm paying taxes on the 3 foot that I don't have anymore.
That's true. And in California, I believe that actually is a requirement to obtain adverse possession, is they have to pay the tax for that 3 feet. However, there have been court decisions saying that the assessor's office doesn't necessarily have to have the exact boundaries for the assessed parcel. And for 3 feet, that's such a small space that the court may in fact waive that requirement. Whereas if it was a larger parcel of many acres, it may not be as easily waived.
Yeah. Well, I was trying to get a free fence out of the deal, but
Sure. My best advice again would be to try to work it out, and work out a mutual agreement with the other owner. Maybe go in 50-50 on a new fence on the boundary line. That way, everyone can leave happy.
Yeah.
And avoid having to hire someone like me.
Don't spend money on an attorney. You spend money, in a more reasonable.
He's a nice guy. Him and I get along real well. So.
Oh, great.
We
That's
could
good to
probably
hear.
work something out.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for
very
calling.
much.
I hope that answered your question, caller. Thank you very much. And I want to ask you, if a neighbor builds let's say I don't even know if this is off topic, but if you're renting a property and your neighbor has a fence, there's a fence that separates the two properties,
Sure.
let's say the neighbor builds a trap door on that fence and is able to, enter onto your property in the backyard. Is that legal?
That's a unique situation. I've never heard of that before. The neighbor would be trespassing if he were to enter onto your property.
The reason I
your
ask
backyard.
is because I know of a situation like that, and I just thought I'd throw that out
I
there.
would say there's nothing prohibiting you from putting a large decorative rock in front of the trapdoor and keeping it from opening. But
filing charges against your neighbor for trespassing.
Yeah, technically it may be a misdemeanor. You can also sue the neighbor for nominal damages. You can get $1 out of him each time he comes
For what,
into your backyard.
unlawful entry or what?
It's trespassing, more or less.
All right.
And if he were to cause damage to the property, for instance, let's say enters through his trapdoor and breaks a sprinkler, you could, in theory, get the damages
Or
for replacing them.
if he enters through the trap door onto your property, slips and breaks his hip.
In California, you would actually be liable for that.
Even if he trespassed.
Yes,
See,
California
that's not good.
applies.
I don't like that.
Yeah, California ended that distinction between mere trespassers and what used to be licensees and invitees, and kind of an interesting legal aside. But yes, you could very well suffer a lawsuit if you were negligent and your neighbor was injured while he was trespassing on your property.
Unbelievable. Boy, that's almost like the same law where if somebody enters your house at 3 in the morning, you shoot and kill that intruder because they're trying to hurt you and your family. and you end up getting sued. Anyway, listen, we got to take a couple of more minutes here, then we'll go to break. I do want to put picture up number 5. We haven't seen that yet. We'll go through these slowly here because we have a series of pictures that we want to show. Tenants who have actually trashed property. Here is another kitchen that looks like a pigsty. Don't know how anyone ever lived in a kitchen or a house like this. This looks like the kitchen of it's a house, right? It's a
yes.
home. Where was this, by the way? Do you recall?
You know, I don't recall the address. Yeah, it was here in Fresno.
That's disgusting.
And yes,
were there cockroaches? Were there ants? Were there bugs everywhere?
You know, oftentimes
Rats,
you'll open the front door and cockroaches will fall onto your arm. So I've gotten into the practice now of opening the door, and standing back to let the bugs fall down.
Okay, how about picture number 6? There's picture number 6. This looks like a backyard or a patio. I don't know.
This was actually near Cedar and 180 at a rental property following a foreclosure. And this is a good example of a large number of an eviction rather, a large number of personal belongings left after the tenant vacated the property.
Right, that's picture number 7.
This is that same property. And again,
wow.
And it's a large
almost looks like an encampment, doesn't it?
Absolutely. This property also had a mobile home or a travel trailer in the backyard as well.
Wow. All right. There's a pit bull, so if you come near the property, you're in big trouble, huh?
This really irritated me. They left the dogs when they left.
Yeah.
So we,
So what do you do? Call animal control here?
We did. We called the SPCA, and they were able to come out and rescue the dogs.
All right. Next photo. There it is. What's it? Same property?
I'm not sure. It could be.
Trashed. Totally trashed. That's the outside of the property, obviously.
Yes.
Here's looks like an inside photo of just an absolute mess.
You can see that screen formerly on the window is now on the bed on the floor there.
Yeah. How about the next photo? There we go. Boy, this pristine living conditions, as you can see here, ladies and gentlemen, unbelievable. I'm being sarcastic, of course, but I, for the life of me, we've seen that photo before. So we'll go to the next one, but I don't see how anybody can live like this.
Well,
it's
and you see the papers on the stovetop.
Yeah, that's no fire hazard there, right, John?
Certainly not.
No.
And what's unfortunate is the landlord has the obligation to maintain habitable living conditions for the tenant during the time the tenant's living in the property. But oftentimes it can be a struggle for landlords to maintain habitable conditions when the tenants refuse to even conduct the most basic cleaning or hygiene.
Keep that photo up there. Is that a bedroom, a living room? What is that?
I think that's a couch.
So it's got to be a living room type situation.
I believe so. Sometimes.
How would you like to come home to that every day? Isn't that amazing how people live? Go ahead, next photo. Oh my God.
Yes.
Are you speechless? What can you say?
The first couple times I saw houses like this, I was aghast, and now it's just become so. I see this so often, you kind of become numb to it.
Yeah. Here's another situation here. So let me ask you this: you see this all the time. How common is this? Is this more common than not, or is this kind of abnormal? Are there people? What's the percentage of people that you see living like this and that they just take off and leave the place a mess like this?
And again, these photos were all after evictions. So of course that may be skewing the numbers a bit. The average, if you have a better property in a nicer area of town, and you screen the tenant properly and you get a good tenant, you shouldn't have to deal with this too often. It should be much more rare. Then if you have a property in
hang on, caller,
not as good of an area of town, perhaps you didn't screen the tenant, and this may be more likely. And that's why, again, it's important.
But this can't be the norm, is it? I just don't see how people can live like this.
These are more extreme than the norm, but
so in other words, most people don't leave apartments or homes like this.
The average, the norm would be. Perhaps it's not clean. We may need to have someone go in and clean and repaint.
Crew, or maybe
perhaps replace the carpet more frequently than necessary.
Or clean the carpet.
Yes,
but not like this. This is the extreme.
This would be more extreme
common,
than the norm.
It's not the norm. Okay, caller, go ahead. You're on the air.
John, let me ask you a real quick question. You talk about slumlords. Usually they rent a lot of houses to undocumented people, and they use it for their benefit, because I know one, and I've already called. But the thing is, they can get 10 men living in a 2-bedroom house and charge $1,500 a month, and won't even take care of the plug-ups of the restrooms and all that, just to have people live there. And they'll live there because for the simple reason they need a place to to live. And the slumlords and I can tell you, they rent from the people or the areas where nobody else is going to rent, so they're going to rent to these people. And is that common?
Thank you, caller.
Among my clients, it's very uncommon, because I would, certainly not suggest that it would be appropriate to have 10 individuals living in a 2-bedroom house.
No.
And that's a good point. As I mentioned earlier, federal fair housing laws prohibit discrimination on the basis of family status, but you still are permitted to set a maximum number of occupants in a property based on the number of bedrooms. You just can't say that you have to be married, or you can't exclude children, for instance, those types of things.
Right. But is there a state law that says, okay, if there's a family of 6, there has to be a certain amount of bedrooms for those people? Or can 6 people live in a 2-bedroom apartment? Is that illegal?
Off the top of my head, I don't know of any state law setting a maximum number of occupants for a house given a certain number of bedrooms.
Interesting. What about the eviction?
Faced that.
What about the eviction process for a landlord? How many days? Is there a state law that says you got to be out in 30 days, 90 days, 60 days, whatever the case may be? And also, every so often, every 30 days, every 6 months, does the landlord have the right to do an inspection?
Well, in terms of the eviction process, all evictions begin with a notice, and the notice time can vary from 0 days to 90 days, typically. Sometimes 120.
Well, they have to give you more than 24 hours notice, don't they?
In certain circumstances, where if there is a lease, for example, from January 1 of this year through December 31st of the same year, technically the tenant would be an unlawful detainer on the following day, on January 1st of the next year. The law determines that there is in fact notice and that the lease ends on a specified day, and there doesn't begin a month-to-month tenancy unless the landlord accepts a monthly rent from the tenant. So that would be a circumstance where there wouldn't be an additional notice required.
So is 24-hour notice okay then? Is it legal?
For entering a property?
No, for eviction. You can't evict somebody.
In rare circumstances.
Rare circumstances
typically,
you can.
If there's
hang on, caller.
If there's a breach of the rental agreement, such as the tenant's failure to pay rent, the tenant's committing waste, like destroying the property or committing a nuisance, you can use a 3-day notice. And that would give the tenant 3 days to pay the rent, for instance, that's past due, or vacate, or 3 days to cure the breach of the contractual provision or vacate. And then you could file the unlawful detainer on the 4th day.
Interesting. Caller, go ahead. Limited time, as we're looking more at more photos of trashed, either homes or apartment complexes. Go ahead. You're on the air. Hello?
Yes, I have a question on the apartment complex. Can they evict you and tell you not to barbecue on the balcony?
Well, if your lease does prohibit barbecuing on the balcony, that would be and you do proceed to barbecue on the balcony, that would be a breach of that contractual provision.
Holy cow, look at that photo. Wow.
The landlord would probably in that situation serve you a 3-day notice to cure or quit, and that would give you 3 days to stop barbecuing on the patio or to vacate. And so in this case, I think you should have the opportunity to stop barbecuing and not face an eviction if you do agree to stop barbecuing.
Answer your question, caller?
Yes, it does. Thank you very much.
Thank you for calling.
Thank you. Does the landlord have the right to inspect every 6 months?
There's a civil code section dealing with and it specifies certain reasons why a landlord can enter into a tenant's property.
But if it's in the lease agreement, I can enter every 2 months or 6 months to do an inspection.
In this case, I think the civil code would supersede any provisions in the lease agreement providing for inspections. As a general rule, I think the landlord could be able to perform a regular annual inspection. Anytime, though, before the landlord enters the property, they have to provide a 24-hour written notice to the tenant specifying the date and approximate time that they will be entering the property.
Caller, we have limited time. Your question's going to have to be 10 seconds or less. Go ahead. You're on the air.
Jim, just wanted to point out, and the question maybe he could just talk about, touches on it, but this really affects the landlord's insurance rates as well. When you have something like this, it makes it very difficult for them to insure their properties, and thus I think when they do, they end up having to pay a high premium, and that's going to be passed on to other tenants. So it's a bad deal for everybody. That's my comment.
Thank you. True or false?
That renting your property out may cause higher insurance premiums, and in that case, it may be true. I would highly recommend that the landlords get a landlord insurance policy. It's typically Form DP3, I believe, from your insurance agent, and it provides additional coverages for lost rent. If the building's destroyed, the insurance company will provide you typically a year's worth of the rent while they're reconstructing and so forth.
John, you know I respect you, and thank you for your expertise today. Thanks for being on the program. John Cadwalader, and shocking photos that you brought with you. I appreciate that, too, very much. Kind of an eye-opener, but you'll have to come back, would you?
I'd love to.
All right.
Thanks so much for having me.
Give your phone number out quickly. We have 10
seconds.
Oh, sure.
You can reach me at my office. It's 559-221-3111. Again, that's 221-3111.
All right, John Cadwalader, thank you very much.
Thank you for having me.
All right, he is an attorney that deals in landlord-tenant issues, so call him if you have an issue. Tomorrow, Peter Nazaridian talking about family, marriage, relationships, girlfriend, boyfriend. Oh my God, we have relationships all over the place, including here at work. Maybe he can straighten us out, right? Back tomorrow. Have a wonderful day, and watch Austin Reed tonight at 5 on the Justice Network.
Tired of waiting and waiting and waiting just to see how the weather will be tomorrow? First Alert No Wait Weather with Austin Reed has you covered. Get tomorrow's forecast and the 5-day outlook in less than a minute and at a convenient time. Weeknights between 6 and 10 p.m. only on KVHF 4, KVBC 13, KPID 31, and BTV Fresno. First Alert No Wait Weather, brought to you exclusively by the Ventura Broadcasting Company.